So as far as creating a great, majestic, and extremely bombastic drum sound, as I said before, the room sound plays a major role. In order for us to describe the size and the width of, especially of the entire drum kit, we use 4-room microphones. I generally use a large diaphragm microphone. In this case, I use 2 pair of Neumann M50s, which are these two over here. As a distance from the kit, based on the 3-to-1 rule, I have measured approximately 21 feet, almost 22 feet away from the kit. And they are up high in the sky. They are way above even the overhead microphones, because the point of these two microphones is picking up a very nice stereo spread of how the actual room sound in context with our drum kit. We're not aiming to use these two microphones to capture the direct sound of the drums. What I want to capture with these two microphones is the actual room reflections that happen every time the drummer slams on part of the kit. Another great thing to remember is that tube microphones, especially these tube microphones, work in omnidirectional polar pattern. So they're picking up actually everything at 360 degrees almost every single reflection that hits them. So the reflection from the ceiling, from the ground, from the adjacent walls, everything. And it's exactly what I'm going to be using in order to bring a little bit more the sensation of an extra layer of depth of my drum kit. So I want really the listener every time would listen to this drum kit to perceive the same sensation as if it was or she was in the same room as the drummer. I'm gonna let you hear these two microphones from this perspective just so that you can have a visual reference, and then I will change the shot to let you hear the difference that these two microphones are doing. So I'm going to unmute them and solo them to let you hear only the Neumann M50s tube microphones. I'm gonna go ahead and let you hear the difference between closed microphones, only snare top, kick in, and the two floor toms. And then I will just put in the far back room microphones. You hear how much these two microphones bring up a lot of tone and a lot of grit of the overall drum kit. Given the fact that they are tube microphones and also very colorful in terms of frequency response, I'm actually using them in conjunction with my closed room microphones again to start layering different part of the drum kit. As we know, especially when it comes to the physics of sound, each different sound and each different frequency has a different behavior in the environment in which we record them. So by having different microphones, we're able to pick up almost every single physical characteristic of each single drum kit elements, from the frequency to the wavelength to the amplitude to the time that intercur between when the drummer hits and the microphone picks up the direct sound plus the reflections. So I'm going to let you hear again from a different perspective this these two microphones only. So I'm gonna start again only soloing up the kick and snare, and then unmuting the far back microphones, room microphones. I'm gonna change shot. Again, we're talking about these two microphones over here on the side, actually in the far back of the room. Before without. moving towards the tone fill. Again, without. You hear how big the drum kit all of a sudden became, and how huge actually the room became, because exactly what these microphones are doing is trying to record how the room reacts to the sound of our drums and not the other way around. So what I'll do right now is blend them in. Let's see if you can see my faders. So I'm gonna start blending in these two microphones with the sound of the direct kit, in order to create a good balance, at least a rough balance. So again, with these two microphones, the only thing I'm doing is trying to recreate an extra layer of thickness of my drum kit. What I'll do right now is to play this in context with my other rooms. So right now I'm going to mute the mono bloom lane and the far back rooms. So we're listening only to closed microphone plus overheads. And then I will start by unmuting only the closed microphones and then the far back microphones. I'm gonna just change to a different shot. Again, so I have pretty much dissected back from overall drum kit sound to only closed microphones. So now I'm going to start rebuilding it again, adding the overheads, the closed room, and the far room. So we got direct sound, stereo spread, third dimension, depth. To do so, I'm going to actually change to here. That sounded really good. I mean, that sounded like we were just in the same room as the drummer. I can try it out a different combination. I could, from the same position, mute the left and right and just use the XY configuration to see what happens to the overall sound of the drum kit. So again, now we have closed microphones plus I'm gonna add XY and unmute the far back room. I'm actually going to mute the closed rooms. So you see by default, XY is already shrinking down a little bit the size of the drum kit, making it very precisely left and right, so we don't have a lot of spread. But let's see what we can do with the room microphones. I'm gonna let you hear the difference between XY and space pair, and I'm gonna let you hear the difference between KM184 and Royer 122. The timbre of both of these microphones are very different. Again, my personal taste is a little bit more towards the darker side of the R122 rather than the bright side of the KM184 for the specific type of song we're going to be recording right after, which is a funk rock song. So I am after that sound. If I was recording something completely different, I would probably go for an XY techniques and definitely for the KM184, which are exceptional microphones. So I'm gonna let you hear before the XY, and then I will mute them and switch to stereo pair, the Royer 122. Let's see what happened with Glyn Jones. Glyn Jones works like a charm even with this type of scenario. Again, we don't have a huge stereo spread, but yet considering that we're using two microphones, a mono overhead and a right side of the drummer position, they're doing an incredible job in representing very accurately the overall drum kit. I'm gonna move back though to my stereo pair, and again I'm gonna let you hear the difference without the far room, and then I will put the far room back in to let you hear how much of the depth and the weight of the overall drum kit and room we gain with these two microphones. Do you hear how much, the more we start building up with different microphone configuration, different microphones, and of course the signal flow where we patch the microphones in, helped truly to sculpt the sound of this instrument, this phenomenal instrument. And everything that we're discussing today could be applied to any musical instrument. So again, we're using a combination of closed microphone to bring up a little bit more the definition of the element, but the true sound that we are actually perceiving on an everyday life or throughout a recording comes from two different things: the direct sound of the instrument, and especially how the reflections of the rooms will work in conjunction with that sound. So with that said, we're moving towards a very interesting chapter, which is the experimentation. which again, it's key, especially when it comes to recordings. So now that I have my laid out all my tracks and all my microphones, generally the microphones that I use the most, since I have 3 spare inputs available on my console, I decided to experiment a little bit. So I'm going to talk about 3 different experimental techniques that will help our drum kit to gain a little bit more extra texture if you want. Now again, these few new techniques are completely unconventional. Not everyone has to use it, but I thought since I have the microphones and I have the input, why not experimenting a little bit more with the sound of the drums and the room. So without any further ado, let's move towards our experimental drum microphone techniques.